Hello guys, my name is Zolk, and in this video I'm going to be going through all the abilities in the Mythic High Botanist encounter and how to counter them in the perspective of a DPS. This is not a full on tactic guide or a guide for healers or tanks, but more for a DPS needing to quickly understand how to deal with the abilities and the specific things they need to watch out for. The mythic changes for this fight is that Botanist Tel'arn will begin the encounter with all 3 images up. It plays kinda similar on normal and heroic once you reach 50% on those difficulties, however this time they do not share the same health pool. Once an image is killed off, their abilities will then be passed on and empowered into the next phase, and then the same happens once you kill and reach the final image for the last phase. So basically their abilities each time just get empowered once an image is killed off. So as this fight has a variety of strategies and kill orders to choose from, which has a significant effect to the outcome of the abilities, and therefore there will be just too much information to try and explain in a short period of time. I will then just be covering in which order my guild was successful in downing this boss, and will be splitting the explanations of their abilities in 3 phases, but each time an image dies the abilities are slightly altered, so I'll explain them in this order. So the kill order my guild decided to go with was first the Naturalist, then the Arcanist, and lastly the Solaris. And now I'll be going over the abilities in phase 1. The first ability is the Parasitic Fetter debuff. 2 ads will spawn randomly on a raid member once the debuff has been dispelled, and then 2 ads will fixate 2 other members in the raid and chase them. If they reach their intended target, they will explode and spawn 2 more Parasitic Fetter ads. To counter this, you will need to focus DPS onto these ads as soon as possible and keep them either stunned or slowed. Range should be able to handle these most of the time without issue. The next ability you'll need to watch out for is Solar Collapse. This creates a ring of solar patches which pulses and move towards the center. Make sure to always move out as soon as possible, as you can be easily caught in the middle or close to its center, taking a significant amount of damage from its pulses. Next is Plasma Spheres. There are 3 fiery orange spheres which will spawn around the room. Once they are killed, they will explode for heavy raid-wide damage, as well as leaving a 5-second debuff to everyone, where you will take an additional 100% damage from another Plasma Sphere exploding. The way you deal with this is by making sure to nuke one of the spheres as quickly as possible, and then making sure to not kill another sphere until the 5-second debuff has expired. You will only ever have to kill 2 spheres as a raid, as the third one will passively expire and explode. But again, you must make sure you have killed the second sphere as close to the first sphere's debuff running out, as the third sphere could passively expire and explode while still having your second sphere's debuff still running. Control Chaos is the next ability, and it is the dark purple swirly on the ground, which will explode in a series of 3, and each time it explodes it expands in size by 10 yards, covering the majority of the room. The way you want to deal with this is by always trying to bait the ability to the outer edges if possible, to help prevent as much movement to your raid, as well making sure to never personally get hit by the explosions. And lastly, Toxic Spores will periodically spawn on your raid members, lasting up to 2 minutes. You want it typically to avoid these as much as possible, as they leave a very strong ticking debuff onto anyone who's been hit by them. Classes with immunities or very strong defenses should use them to clear the spores, as over a period of time they do start to take a lot of space and makes it a lot harder for you and your raid to handle other abilities like Control Chaos and Solar Collapse. Once you have killed off the Naturalist, your DPS should now be focusing the Arcanist. Most of the abilities stay the same apart from Plasma Spheres and a new ability called Call of the Night. Call of the Night is a purple looking debuff which pulses around you. It will target 2 random players throughout this phase and will do a large amount of raid wide damage, which increases if no one without the debuff helps soak. The way you deal with this is when someone has been targeted by Call of the Night is to make sure that there is at least one person who stands with that player until the debuff expires, to prevent any raid wide explosions. Also to make sure if you have a debuff to never stand close to someone else who also has Call of the Night, as this will then cause significant amounts of raid wide damage again. Plasma Spheres are still to be dealt with in the same manner as in phase 1, however now once you have killed off a Plasma Sphere, 2 Parasitic Fetter ads will spawn from that sphere, which need to be dealt with in the same way as in phase 1. Make sure after every sphere has been killed to instantly switch to Parasitic Fetter ads and nuke them as soon as possible, preferably before moving on to the next sphere and set of ads. The other abilities in this phase that do not change, which are the Toxic Spores, Solar Collapse and Control Chaos, and you deal with all these abilities in the exact same way as in phase 1. Now finally, once you have killed off the Arcanist, you will be left with the Solaris. In this last phase there are a few slight changes to the abilities again. Call of the Night debuff now combines with Solar Collapse and now spawns from the player with a Call of the Night debuff. The way we dealt with this in this phase is by making sure every set of debuffs we made sure that those players suicided by running into the toxic spores to kill themselves. This just helps with the spacing of the room, and having 2 Call of the Night debuffs plus Solar Collapse coming from those players makes this phase, as you can imagine, a lot harder, so it was just worth for us to kill them off. We made sure we suicided 3 sets of Call of Night debuffs, which each set having 2 players suicide. So just a quick note, it's also very important to try and get into the last phase with a minimum of 2 combat reses, so you can immediately res the players who had to suicide and still have enough DPS to kill the boss off. Next, the plasma spheres are still needed to be killed off as the same in phase 1 and phase 2, however now they do not spawn the parasitic Theta ants, but instead once they have been killed off, they spawn a load of toxic spores in that location. Again, this can be linked back with the Call of the Night debuff and why it just helps to use the suicide tactic to help clear the room out, as if you don't, the room can be soon covered in these toxic spores and making it very hard for such movement. Lastly, the parasitic Theta debuff now spawns on the tank, and what happens now is that once you dispel the tank, the 2 ads will still spawn, but now also Controlled Chaos will also spawn from that tank location. So again, nothing really changes, just make sure to nuke the ads as soon as possible and just move away from the Controlled Chaos. Now that I have covered all the abilities, I'm going to quickly summarize each phase and what you need to take note on. In phase 1, you have to deal with the parasitic Theta debuff and ads. Remember to keep them stunned and slowed to kill them as soon as possible, as you don't want them reaching their intended target. For Solar Collapse are the ring pulses which go towards its center, just remember to move from it again. Plasma spheres are the 3 fiery balls. You must remember after nuking the first one to not kill the second sphere until the first sphere's debuff runs out. Also to remember to never touch the third sphere, as this will passively expire on its own. Control Chaos are the 3 series of explosions which expand by 10 yards each time it explodes. Just make sure to just move out from it and try to bait it to the side of the rooms. Toxic spores will spawn around the room, just make sure to never run or get hit by them as they leave a strong ticking debuff. In phase 2, after the Naturalist has been killed off, the Call of the Night debuff is introduced, and all you have to do is make sure to not be standing on the other person who has the Call of the Night debuff, and to have someone always standing with you to prevent from exploding raid-wide damage. Plasma spheres need to be killed off in the same way, however now they spawn the parasitic Theta ads, which again need to be kept stunned and slowed before reaching their targets. Control Chaos, Solar Collapse and Toxic Spores all remain the same as in phase 1. Lastly, in phase 3, Call of the Night debuff now combines with Solar Collapse, as the first 3 sets of 2 need to suicide, also to try and save combat reses for this phase. Plasma spheres no longer spawn parasitic Theta ads and is now to be dealt with in the same manner as in phase 1, however now they spawn toxic spores in that location. The parasitic Theta debuff now spawns on the tank. Once dispelled, 2 parasitic Theta ads will spawn, and also Controlled Chaos will spawn in that tank's location. You will deal with these in the same way in phase 1. So, I know there's a lot to this fight, but it's mostly just learning the priority of knowing what to be targeting at what moment. Once as a raid team you can synergize with DPS and not fall asleep when needing to dodge certain things, this boss will be dead in no time. I hope it has helped you in some way. My name is Zolk and I'll hopefully be covering more guides soon. Peace.